Well, here we are, another Writing Wednesday. I'm sorry I didn't post any kind of warm-up for this, um, but many people just tune in on Wednesday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and it will always be here on my Facebook author page. So I welcome you and hope people are feeling spring wherever they're living. It's really spring here in LA, and I'm finally over that cold, or almost over it. So what I thought I would do today is I feel spring coming on. I feel the imagination warming up. And I thought I would share some of my, hey Judy, thought I would share some of my favorite, hey Brett, thought I would share some of my favorite writing exercises with you today. And people, often come to their writing with preconceived ideas. I want to write a story about a cowboy who falls in love with his horse, and then this complication, and, they're basically synopsizing a story. Hi, Lai. Lol. Hi. And it's a very interesting way to get out of your way. Is instead of deciding what you want to write on, and most of you who know me know that this is important to me, instead of deciding what you want to write about and then writing about that, hi Hannah, I call this neck up writing, where you decide in your brain, I'm going to write about, this conflicted spinster who this and this, hi Linda, conflicted spinster who has this problem with rats, or it's much more interesting to use exercises, hi Howard, that open up the unconscious material that you carry with you. Annie Dillard in Living by Fiction, another wonderful Annie Dillard book. I know I suggested that everybody read The Writer's Life, but Living by Fiction, also an incredible book. And what you do is, what she says is that the self is the bearer of the paint box, of its inherited contents, of obsessions and fascinations. Hi, Alicia. So what that means is that you are the paint box. The materials that you carry with you, inside you, all your unconscious materials, that is your paint box. That's the contents of obsessions and fascinations. Whatever you write about, you will end up writing about that stuff if you are writing deeply enough. So I suggest that people don't sit down and decide what they're going to write about. I suggest that people do exercises and see what's in that paint box. Hi, Mohammed. Good to see you. That you open up the paint box of your own contents of obsessions and fascinations and see what's in there. And exercises are a fabulous way to do that, much better than neck up writing. This is neck down writing, and I'm a great proponent of this. So how do you get to those unconscious materials? You can't just say, I'm going to write, create the uncreated conscience of my race or whatever, out of the blue. How do you get in there and see what you're made of? And what I do is, what's interesting is somebody asked Chekhov, who was an incredibly vital writer, such a great imagination, what was he going to write next? And he picked up an ashtray off his writing desk, and he said, well, maybe I'll write about this ashtray. And of course, the interviewer had no idea what he was talking about, but as writers, we know what he's talking about. Everything that comes to you at random can be the source of unlocking unconscious material. And there's a couple of ways to do this, but whenever you feel stuck, if you feel dumb, if you're done with a project and don't know what you're going to be working on next, if you feel kind of out of touch with your own creative process, these exercises will help make you feel like, oh yeah, there's that material. I'm sitting on this gold mine that is myself and is my consciousness. How do you get in there? Well, one thing you can do is you can pick up an object at random. Often it's even better if it's not your object, if it's something you found in the street, much better. So, but I just grabbed this because it was an ashtray. And I know where this ashtray came from. I know stories about it. But that's not the way the exercise works. The exercise is allowing entry into unconscious material. So first you look at the ashtray and you try to describe it as a thing. This is where all our sense exercises come in. It's an ashtray. It is brass. It is somewhat stained. You can see the hand of the person who made it. You see little striated marks. If you see that striation, say, and you can't think of the word for it, then you get your thesaurus. Somebody argued with me about thesaurus and said that they've seen a lot of writing where people just use it as a grab bag and pull words out they don't know what they mean and just slam them into their work and it becomes unreadable. Yes, it does. But when you see a phenomenon like this striation, this horizontal, shallow horizontal cuts and rubbing that come from creating this brass, the hammering, often it's in the thesaurus. You have to find it. So it's got freehand stars cut into the surface, lively, each with a little circle at the end. And even to my sensibility, I would say this is from the 50s. It has that certain kind of joyous freehand design that was popular in the mid-century modern movement. So I would say mid-century modern. But when you do an exercise like this, with food, with anything, start to think, if this was a sound, if this was a musical instrument, what instrument would it be? I'm getting a made-for-export, hand-hammered brass object made in perhaps North Africa or India, and I'm going to pick North Africa because it interests me. I'm going to say it's Tunisian or Moroccan. And I can hear the hammering in the little shop where it was made. Somebody with some contact with Western markets decided that this would sell better than a traditional design, but I bet the maker was a traditional maker. So often you ask yourself, when is it? Where is it? Who is it? So I could see somebody working in their family shop in, I'm going to say Morocco. I'm going to say Fez, where I've never been, but it kind of excites me, interests me, that city. So I would love to write about Fez anyway. So that's one of my obsessions. I happen to like Morocco. And these stars are so lively. I'm going to say it's a younger member of the family. I would say it's perhaps a teenage son working in the family brass business on a street full of brass businesses, pounding this out and in a charming way. And I see him as a person. I see him as, I start to think about what is his relationship with his family. Is it his father's business? Is it his uncle's business? How do they see him? What's the relationship? What does he want? Does he gravitate more toward these Western designs than his family? Does he dream of maybe going to England or France? It's easier to get to France, easiest to get to Spain. Maybe he's saving up. Maybe he has a secret. Maybe he has a girlfriend. And there you have a story. You start to develop a story from an ashtray. But always challenge yourself to describe it. I mean, it has a certain kind of sharp, dirty, metallic smell. All brass smells like that to me. If it was a musical instrument, well, there's a definitely percussive sound of hammering brass. So, you could say it sounds like a xylophone or marimba, but brass is brass instruments. Perhaps it's a horn. But because I've got work in this Middle Eastern theme or North African theme, I'm thinking more of a flute. They've got some wonderful flutes. And I could definitely start a story about that kid. And my own obsessions and fascinations, of course, would come in, and I would have conflict, and that would reflect my own sense of what close family life is like. I've worked in a family business before. I know the tensions that go on and who gets a say and who has to shut up and that whole thing. And I think I could get kind of an interesting story out of this ashtray. So Chekhov's ashtray. An exercise I do a lot with, your ashtray came from Big Lots, but somebody made it. Alicia, once you go past where you bought it into the hands of the person who made it. There are a lot of stories that work that way. Watch you buy your t-shirt from Big Lots and you start thinking of who made it. Where were they? When were they? How old are they? What's their relationship in their family? What's going on? You get wonderful stories. This is something that all my students know about. I have an exercise called The Word. I used to be in a writing group here in LA where people would pick a word, and usually it was a simple word that often was both a noun and a verb. And you would write 2 pages double-spaced using that word somewhere in there. And I have written countless short stories using this word. Hi, Mercy. Constant, I've written hundreds of short stories that have come out of this exercise, and many things, larger things that come. White Oleander came out of that exercise. The word was wind. So I have a bunch of words in here. Mostly they are simple words that are both a noun and a verb. So let's pick one and see how this one works. Okay. So this is brick. So you can brick in something, or you can have a brick. So brick is the word. Now how do I work with that? I'd make a list, and I put in all the associations I have with the word brick. So brick. Brick is like you wall something up, wall up something. Cask of Amontillado, right? He got bricked in. Brick falls apart in an earthquake. It's very dangerous here in Southern California. You don't see very many brick buildings, or if you do, you see the big old bolts in there holding it together. So you could have a brick building in earthquake. You could have a groovy jazz club in the cellar somewhere, usually not in LA, maybe in Toronto, New York. So groovy cellar, brick-walled jazz club or folk club. You know, that's starts to get into my own generation. You know, all the classic New York and San Francisco beat clubs with that brick wall. So it could be a folk club or a beat club. Let's see, that brick, throwing a brick through a window. So brick through a window, who might have done that? Some very angry person. And they have a brick available, so, you know, probably somebody who's near a construction site. There's also gold bricking, an old term for somebody who is a shirker. Gold bricking, a gold bricker, gold brick bricking. And then I look at those and I think, now which is going to stimulate my own unconscious materials the best? So I look at all of those, and boy, that beat club with the brick wall in the basement, listening to somebody recite poetry as somebody else plays the bongos. Okay, that really feels like there's the most, I feel the most response to that. That or the brick building in the earthquake and things falling apart. But I'm going to go with the beat club and start exploring why that appeals to me. So I go, when is it? Where is it? Who is it? So where? I'm going to say I like New York. So it's one of those places below grade, in a cellar, in the village, in the 50s, as I, or maybe my boyfriend, is reading his poetry. And the kind of magic of the beat life really interests me. Hi, Judy. The magic of the beat life. Many people today are so saturated by commercial culture, and artists, I mean, it really wounds me when I see writers who have bought into this whole commodification of life that's going on now, and writers who think that they have to have this, and they have to have this device, and they have to have this, you know, artists. And, you know, there's something about, I think people need to go back and embrace the beats and realize that you don't need any of that stuff to be an artist. You need to, you know, try to remove yourself from that as much as you can, and not to feel like a failure because you have one dented pot and you're dripping coffee because you don't have a coffee maker. So what? You know, so what? You're free. You know, that's important. So I would love to write about that. So I think that's my what I would do with brick. Here's a couple of other exercises that that you might like to try. But they all work the same way. Here's some perfume. It's Miss Dior Cherie Le Eau. It's very nice. I'm going to put some on here and see what I can do with it, with the smell of it. It's, in describing a sense phenomenon, you start with the literal. It's sweet, kind of alcohol-y. And a little tiny bit sharp. But then it's like, what else am I smelling in there? It's kind of fruity. There's a little bit of a peach in there. And then I go back to the title, Miss Dior Cherie. So I'm seeing the color peach. I'm seeing a sort of a proper girl, somebody who would be Miss Dior. People aren't Miss anymore at all. So it's like, Miss. Okay, so she's a kind of a proper girl. And Cherie, of course, is one of the great novels of, oh, why am I blanking here? Come on, help me out. Gigi and Cherie and Claudine Colette. So I'm seeing a young girl, and then I'm seeing Colette, who was such a wonderful, sophisticated person who had been through everything. So now I have two characters. I have Cherie, Miss Dior, Miss Peachy, who I see maybe 14, 15, dressed for some occasion that her mother has put her in something appropriate. And she's somebody who I think people who are, hey Amber, I'm feeling that some people are who are very proper on the inside, use their propriety as a way of keeping people from messing with them too much and have a whole other life going on like that. So I can see this little goody girl, the Miss Dior girl, and then running into someone like Colette. And even having a character and author relationship, which would be very interesting to have a conversation like that. So that's what I'm getting off of Cherie, the perfume. Yeah, I'm seeing gloves, a hat, so I'm in period again. Gloves, a hat, like a round purse. I had a round purse when I was a kid, of patent leather, like a hat box purse, that in the Kennedy era. And so maybe I'll say Kennedy era, 62, 63, very beginning of the mod era. I'm seeing a whole story going on here. Here's another one. Here's a postcard that was stuck in a bag of something I bought. And I'm going to turn this around so you can see it more clearly. So this is some guy is catching a fish, and then some big fish is about to catch him. Arr, 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 arr. And he's already caught one. So this is one of those humorous rural postcards, extremely Americana. And so I'm already on a lake somewhere in Boundary Waters, Minnesota, Michigan, middle of lake country, and rural humor. So rural humor, I'm at the bait shop. I'm on vacation with my parents, or my character on vacation with the parents from the big city in the bait shop, dealing with the rural jokesters. I've lived in the country too, and often you get guys who are retired or underemployed hanging out at the bait shop, and they'll tell you what you should be fishing, what hooks you should be using, what flies you, blah 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 blah, talking about bait. And I could see a very humorous story based on this card. Hi, Lisa. So here's something other people's stuff actually is better to do this with than your own stuff, because you tend to have your story ready. You know where it came from. You know what you've thought about it. This is a box full of watch parts. And it's just, there's a whole world, another world in this box. It smells like old books. It smells like old time. I could get a beautiful piece out of this just thinking about watch parts. Look at this. This is crazy. Little watch parts. In case I ever wanted to repair a watch. But somebody repairs watches, and their relationship with time would be absolutely incredible. And time is something that interests me a lot. And so I could see writing a really interesting, not necessarily a linear piece, but I'm looking to do some more avant-garde kind of writing, and this would be a really good place to jump. I also like sets of things like this. My sense of order, I'm pretty disordered, as you can see, kind of a disorderly person. So things that are where everything's in order just charm me. I can read books about organizing yourself to go to sleep to at night. I find them like so reassuring that it's possible to be organized. And then just simple things like taking a piece of fabric. You take a piece of fabric. I don't know if you can see this fabulous taffeta. The light isn't very good. I'm going to turn this around and see if you get a better sense of this. Oh yeah. Now that is a great fabric. So what you do with this is you take the fabric and you can describe it. Close your eyes and just feel it. Run it up your arms, rub it on your face. Like, feel the texture of it. Listen, you can listen to it rustle. And then ask yourself, who is it? Where is it? When is it? So for me, I didn't go to the prom. People in my generation didn't go to the prom. That was for squares. But, oh baby, this is like the prom dress that I never had. It's kind of scratchy. But I could see my hair all ratted up, very 80s. And then what becomes of this dress? Why aren't I wearing it when I come home from the prom? It might be not this one, but let's take a look. I have a whole thing of fabrics. If you were in my class, I'd go around and dump a piece of fabric in front of you, and you would be doing this exercise. Here's a piece of fake fur. I know where this came from, but, what is it? Where is it? When is it? It could be a couch. Oh, in your first apartment, to have a fake fur couch, and what your life would be like to have that as your couch. I mean, stuff is going to happen in that apartment. That'd be awesome. It could be a little jacket that your favorite aunt made you and your mother wouldn't let you wear because you look like a Van Nuys Boulevard hooker. Lots of stuff, lots of conflict. What does it feel like? It's very furry on one side, but it has this sort of awful plasticky felt on the other. So it's very fake, but awesome. Anyway, I love fake fur. So anyway, these are a few ways of constructing exercises for yourself out of tangible objects. I love this. I brought this from Kitchen. This was not mine, and not my family's either. It has some kind of, looks like kind of a Scandinavian little design on the plastic handle, and it's like, whose family is this? It wasn't mine. I mean, I actually know whose it was, but let's say I didn't. Whose mother is attracted to this? And what kind of a life do they live? And where, what era is this? I mean, this is a late 60s, early 70s object. So I already know, like, the time. Where is it? I would say suburban, I'm going to say the suburbs. And then who is it? And I see, I see the mom and her, her hopeful cheerfulness, choosing this particular design. And what kind of a woman is she? And what's her relationship with her family, with her husband, with her children, with her sense of herself? And then what happens to this thing? How does it end up being used? Why did I end up with it? Why does she get rid of that? So you could easily have a character in a thrift store seeing that and tripping out. Having your character going to a pawn shop or a thrift store and just imagining who owned those items. I mean, that is a wonderful exercise, definitely worth doing. So I'm going to leave you here, but definitely enjoy spring and let your imagination run and see what's inside, see what comes up. So thank you very much for joining me, and I think I'll be back on Wednesday. I'm going to be teaching in Idlewild, at Idlewild Arts. So I always try to make it. This is the thing. Once you have a habit, you just keep doing it. So good writing to you, and we'll talk next week. Bye.